Hi, my name is Ariel from the Children of Karma, and today we're going to discuss Neptune on the IC, and this is the parental axis. So depending on how you will read it, which parent you put in which house, in aspect to the moon, it will have to do with the mother. In aspect to the sun or Saturn, it will have to do with the father. I can see both of my parents through this placement. Reading it as the father, there's this fear of losing the father being removed from the home, removed forcefully or leaving on his own. There was always this fear with my father there. He brought along a level of danger with him. Got into a lot of physical fights, and he was in jail for a period of time. So there was always that fear that, well, he could get arrested and then he's gone. Or he can get into a fight and then he's gone. Or he had a daughter previously before I was born, and he left that relationship and he left the daughter as well. So I mean, what was stopping him from leaving this relationship, especially since I was born during his Saturn return? Well, because my Neptune conjunct the IC placement is also conjunct his Venus, his Saturn, and his IC. If we look at it separately, like Venus and Neptune, it's like your love is like it's like a drug. It's intoxicating. It's unconditional. It's the most purest kind, idealistic kind of love. And I do see a path where he could have felt some level of healing. Venus and Saturn conjunction means he's mistrustful of women, and having a daughter with a Neptune conjunct his placement of Venus and Saturn could have shaken up his the rules that he had set for women in his life, or it could have brought in some of that unconditional love into that fear that he had about women and how they couldn't be trusted. And here he was receiving unconditional love from someone that he created. So there was an opportunity for healing. It just was never actually fulfilled. I've often been in the wanting to be saved by someone, and then realizing that, well, no one can do it. It's you that has to save yourself. And also on the other side of wanting to save others, even saying that about my father, wanting to save him, knowing that there was suffering there. Someone with this placement needs more Saturn. This is the solution for this placement, something that can help boundaries. It can make you feel a little deluded. You can have this grand idea, for example, about the father, that he was just this lost soul suffering, and that he didn't have as much power that he did. He wielded a lot of power in his home especially. So to think that he had no ability to save himself and that his child had to save him, I mean, this is part of the delusion of Neptune conjunct the IC, thinking that, well, it was my doing that he wasn't saved. No. You have this level of compassion for the victim. It's like, well, if only they were nurtured, if only they were properly cared for. And I even see it in myself. The women with this aspect can find men who are Neptunian, like their father. I noticed too, I definitely chose someone who was in jail, someone who was addicted. I find myself drawn to people who have a lot of tattoos, and I don't know what it is. I think there's the creative element, the imaginative element of the Neptune. And then my father also drew his own tattoos when he was in prison, and so I'm sure it has something to do with this. The difficulty with this placement is that there is underlying anger because of feeling abandoned in a way. And throughout most of my childhood, I put a lot of the blame on my mother, pressure on her to leave the bad situation. And although, yes, she should have left, but the blame also belongs on my father because he was also unhappy. And why didn't you leave? You had power as well. You could have left. Most of the issues that I had with my father, it was that I saw a lot of potential and he was just wasting it by choosing to escape from his life. He could have been so much further along if he had not chosen to escape. It's important to acknowledge the anger that you might feel from your father being unavailable to you or falling into addiction and not taking responsibility. Otherwise, you'll find a partner who reflects similar qualities and you'll be forced to handle them through another person. And it gets very, very complicated. My mother is also tied into this aspect because it's opposite the moon, and Neptune is similar to that process of a mother and her child giving birth to that child. The child needs that mother for sustenance, for life, and so they are binded for a period of time after the birth. And the child is really not able to see the separation between themselves and others because they're unable to even acknowledge themselves as a person yet. So they see everything as binded. And if during this process there is a major disruption to that bonding between the mother and the child, you can have issues where the child may not want to leave the home because there was not sufficient nurturing during this period. And this is not to blame anyone. This is just to acknowledge the dynamic, what's going on. It can be that the mother didn't have the tools, let's break it down, all of the traumatic events that could take place while the mother is pregnant. And a lot of the mother's emotional stability is dependent on the father, her partner, and how much that partner is giving to her during that time. And there's so many things that could go wrong. Even if you're just moving, this disruption, so many things can go wrong to make that mother feel anxious, uncomfortable, scared, and it can disrupt whatever bonding you have during this period. For me specifically, my mother went back to work. She had to. She's dating this guy, he doesn't have a stable job, and now she has a child with him. So she has to go back to work. That's 6 weeks old, and I was sent to a nanny. The nanny, it was Guyanese. My mother is also from Guyana. So this is a West Indian culture. And I learned more about the culture from my nanny. And I did spend a large amount of time with her. My father was very irresponsible. He was coming home from whatever hustle he was doing and getting drunk. And wouldn't even take care of the kid. I'm still at the nanny. I would stay there for maybe 12-hour days, Anyway, we had disruption during this period of time with my mother and I. And it did feel like I was plucked out of the culture that was present in the home, which was just very not tied to anything. I wouldn't even say it was very, it was just not tied to anything, it seems. Not very patriotic, no religion, no nothing. To go into that home, which is very much like singing and dancing, and the food, everything, the designs in the home, even praying. I learned how to pray from my nanny, and she was praying to, you know, she's Hindu, so it did feel like you're being plucked into a different culture, but it's funny that it's really, that is mine. So without her, I wouldn't know much about my own culture. It's tricky with mothers here. If you have the Neptune conjunct the IC and it's in aspect to the moon, depending on what generation you're in, it's also sextiling Pluto. So this can mean a mother who's really absorbed with her child. I mean, her child is an extension of her, and she may feel lost without that child. So in a way, she can try to hold you back in order to live through you, can be manipulative, or can be just that this is just her pattern and this is just what what makes her feel safe, you know, and she may not have any other tools to handle her emotions. This aspect is very tolerant of other people. They don't have a connection to the neighborhood or the nation, so this breeds companionship amongst all people. And you may find that you're tied to more lunar types because of the compassionate element. And Neptune also has to do with glamour. You can glamour in a positive way, in a creative, artistic way, you know, just trying to make things beautiful. Or you can glamour in a more manipulative fashion. A show that was really popular was True Blood. This is something vampires, very Neptunian, wanting to bind together with another. Also, speaking of binding, fusions are also a Neptunian concept, and I've had 4 fusions on my body total. Also, humility. Humility is a concept tied to Neptune as well, and I think about even overcoming all of the injuries. I had 9 surgeries, and you know, the further you get away from the surgeries, really the thick of it, the more you start to see it as like, who was that? Who did all of that? It's good, actually. It's good to maintain humility. Also, the type of injuries that I have are so humbling. I mean, as soon as I start to feel like I'm so confident, I have everything together, no, that's when everything can come crashing down for me, and I can have some sort of bowel or bladder incidents. And you know, you don't know humbling until you've had to throw out your clothing like on a regular basis because of incidents like that. It's extremely humbling. So I mean, in a way, it's a good checks and balances type of system. What helps the most with a Neptune conjunct the IC is looking towards your Saturn, Saturnian type of things. Create that reliability, that stability for yourself. Start to set up routines, schedules, and follow through. You know, don't overwhelm yourself. Try 1 or 2 things at first and make sure you do them for a few weeks and you get comfortable and you've adjusted to juggling this new thing before you start adding something new. But that discipline will show you that at least you can count on yourself, even if you can't count on anyone else. There's still the trust that you will follow through on your plan, and the more you do, the more you progress in a forward momentum. Thank you for joining me for this video. I'd love to see you at thechildrenofkarma.com to find out your ancestral patterns. Let's find out what they are and better ways that we can work with them using your charts. And you can explore the other astrological services that are available and other coaching services as well. Don't forget to like the video. Thanks. Bye.